I'm Bambi Francisco for Vader News, and I'm speaking with Gus Tai. He's a venture capitalist at Trinity Ventures, a VC in Silicon Valley. Gus, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Bambi.
Well, Gus, you've been very active in the social media space well back to 2005 when you invested in Wet Paint. Then in 2006, you invested in PhotoBucket. Mm-hmm. There's still a lot of investments being made in social media, and the definition or the type of company that fits into the social media bucket has changed. So tell us, how has social media changed from 2005 to 2009?
Sure, Bambi. My sense and our take here at Trinity is social media continues to have the same fundamental aspects to it, although it's become increasingly sophisticated. One of the ways we approach thinking about social media is that Web 2.0 types of technologies has enabled the web to become much more interactive. So rather than publish and subscribe to the masses, it can be interactive of one-to-one, one-to-few types of interactions. Consumers on the internet fundamentally engage in two ways. One way is either around content, which would be what a Wikipedia does or what a Web Paint does, where contributors and editors and readers all converge on a single place to improve or to adjust or to add their own point of view to information. Mm-hmm. The other bucket of interaction relates to just messaging across and with people whom you know. Mm-hmm. And that would be more of what Facebook does. And Facebook, in a lot of ways, we view it as a fantastic company, obviously, but a company that is a directory service and a presence server for all the people who are on the internet. So in the early days, back in 2005 or earlier, companies would approach social media as, what are ways that we can message and communicate with each other, people who we know, or alternatively, what's forms of content that we could talk about. Right. Could be around autos or around different types of topics. Right. So we funded Wet Paint on that notion of providing a platform so that communities could get together and discuss content, right, whether they want to talk about cats or whether they want to talk about, right, autos and such. And then down the road in 2006, we funded PhotoBucket more on the standpoint of that there are normal social groups of people who want to communicate and message with each other, but the fabric of how they communicate is what they're up to. Okay. And PhotoBucket was the largest repository for photographs and for videos that people served and showed to each other. And that company at the time, or by the time when Fox purchased them, was signing up 90,000 new registered users every single day.
That's
of
incredible.
People who wanted to upload and share their photographs with their friends.
Well, now they've been around several years, mm-hmm, now, 3-4 years, yep, now, and they're emerging companies who are iterating on this idea of social media and interaction, communication, sharing news and opinion. And in the space of Wet Paint, you're seeing a number of companies emerging that are trying to address the same customer. Mm-hmm. The big traditional media companies who want to create a fan base around their shows. Mm-hmm. But they're doing it a different way. They're doing it through applications. Yep. And going into the social networks where you see that is where 500 million people are already. And so do you see them as a threat to your social media investment, Wet Paint, given that they iterated on the idea of social media and being in the environment where people are?
Yeah, I don't view them as a threat, and I think that what's wonderful about consumerism, particularly in media consumption in the U.S., is that as audiences become more familiar with any given type of media, they seek their own uniqueness and micro-segmentation. So you could have The Survivor being the first major reality TV show that's been published, and coming from that is American Idol, Big Brother, and a whole host of other ones where each particular show appeals to a certain need of the audience. Right. And likewise, I think that you had highlighted two of the important trends for more recent social media companies in the broad category of Wet Paint, and that is that you could differentiate by having richer types of applications. So right, if you wanted to follow like a celebrity type of angle, you might want to have face-offs of two different celebrities and vote who do you like better, and that's a specific, right, application. The other angle is to ride into the whole social networking fabric of, right, what are plugins that we could have in Facebook or in MySpace and ride that form of distribution. And those are all legitimate. And I think that what's most important is that any given publisher figures out what speaks authentically to the readers and to the contributors of those given sites, and consumers will find that, and there'll be many, many successes.
Okay. Now, I see a lot of social media
Sure.
companies emerging for sure. There is an entire ecosystem of these social applications or social marketers. Are there too many in one particular area, or where do you see saturation? Where do you see investment opportunities?
I think the major change over the last several quarters has been the increased focus on just monetization. That in 06 and 07, a number of the social media companies, along with the companies you're referring to that help support that ecosystem, were focused in on reach because larger traditional publishers were looking to make acquisitions. So they could acquire a company that just had a broad audience, but not necessarily some form of monetization. Right. Given that the large traditional publishers have made their bets, they're not going to be buying as many companies. So startups or emerging companies in social media need to figure out how to develop standalone viable businesses. And so they're looking to service providers or other companies in the ecosystem that you mentioned, either to help through acquisition or to help through monetization. And I think that that's a vibrant opportunity to provide those types of services. So there are companies that help with providing offers in the context if you're on a social media type of platform. How do you advertise to them offers that might be relevant for, say, Netflix or some other type of service? So that's a group of companies. There are other groups of companies that help with syndication or hyper-syndication and distribution. So I wouldn't say that they're overcrowded. I would just say that it's an emerging category, and we'll see how things shake out.
What makes you attracted to an idea or an entrepreneur? You typically, as we spoke earlier, like to invest in a few people in the formative stages. So what makes you attracted to that type of person or idea?
Yeah, what attracts me most is someone who has a great deal of conviction and thought about an emerging area with insight for how that opportunity might be transformative. Because when you're talking about funding an entrepreneur in a formation basis, it's going to be 18 months before they get traction. It might be, these days 6 months before they get something out. And so they have to have a unique lens that's thoughtful, that if so-and-so happens, it could make sense. And so in the case, we could talk about, Wet Paint, which is a company I know you've come across. Ben Elowitz was a serial entrepreneur, so he was co-founder of Blue Now and also at FatBrain before that. But he was thinking very hard about how will people aggregate around content. And he had some hypotheses that weren't yet proven to be true, but he said, let's execute and see what happens. And fortunately, he's been executing well. Unfortunately, he's been right on a number of those assertions. But having that unique lens was important, because otherwise it would be hard to figure out how he would differentiate.
Well, that's important, the experience to see it through.
Yes.
And execute. Okay. Thank you very much, Gus. I've been speaking with Gus Teig. He's a general partner at Trinity Ventures. I'm Bambi Francisco.